Howdy, folks. I hope all of you are well. I'm back with another fun fact for you to help in your understandings of the scriptures. So, lactose intolerance, it became a huge craze in the 90s. We had never even thought of the term before the 90s until it was just promoted heavily everywhere, and then all of a sudden people were convinced into insisting on having that, from dairy companies and whatnot. And they were told this mantra that 30 to 50 million Americans are affected by lactose intolerance, and so we should be inclusive of them, and the dairy manufacturers should be inclusive of them and offer lactose-free dairy products. And so, being the gullible white people that white people are, they quickly followed on board blindly like doofuses and believed this nonsense and started buying lactose intolerant milk and all this crap. And meanwhile, what they didn't realize is that the people promoting this, the you-know-whos, were not talking about real Americans. They were talking about the, quote, Americans, the non-whites that lived in America at the time in the early 90s. And since all of them practically are lactose intolerant, with only rare exceptions here and there, and that's not to say that, you might not run across a non-white that's like, oh, I drink milk, whatever, oh, I eat cereal every day or whatever, but lactose intolerance still allows for you to have some dairy, depending on the severity of your intolerance, but a lot of non-whites are still able to process a little bit of it, but they wouldn't be able to digest large amounts like white people can just enjoy every day, all through the day, week after week, year after year, without negative effects necessarily like others. Now, of course, if you're gluttonous, you could get some kind of negative effect, but we can be lush with dairy compared to any non-whites. And that's medically known. It's been medically known forever. And the point I'm making here, I'm going to get to it, and you're going to like it, so stick around, is that this dumps on the idea, I guess I'll go ahead and give you my point, this dumps on the idea of any non-whites being Israel, all right? So, and this is part of what I try to explain on my channel, is that whites are Israel, and here we go. I'm just going to knock it out of the park. We're going to continue on, but this is the main point here that I need to hammer into your mind in the beginning here. They're the ones who started all these complaints and demanding inclusion and all this of lactose-free, due to their lactose intolerance. So that's them admitting that milk is not for them, okay? And that includes all non-whites. So, moving on, here is another reference where you can see for yourself that the folks who claim to be God's chosen of two different, totally different types, both of those types are the most intolerant of milk. So keep this in mind as we go along here. Lactose intolerance by ethnicity. I'm going to skip this one because, well, I could go ahead and go to it if I want, but that isn't what I meant to have highlighted here. But we'll go ahead and go to it. What the heck? Oh, never mind. So we'll skip that one. Anyway, here we go. Moving on. Gives you another reference. All right, so this is not me going to some weird website that says it or whatever. This is all like reference material type places that, they don't really care about, political nonsense. So here is a thing about Europeans. We have been drinking milk forever. Now this admits 1,000 years ago, but the bottom line is Europeans have been happily, gleefully, healthily drinking milk for thousands of years. Here is a search of the Dairy Farmers Convention. Try to find yourself any non-whites at any of these. And it doesn't really matter where you go all through Google here. You won't find any non-whites who farm dairy. They just don't do it. That doesn't mean that there isn't one in the middle of Nigeria somewhere who does, or that there aren't 7 or 8 or 25 Spanish ones somewhere in some Spanish country doing it. But we're talking about massive industry level flowing amount of milk, of dairy. And remember that word flowing, because it's going to matter here in a little bit when we wrap this all up. Flowing milk from all these white people. All right, this is not 3 or 4 farmers. This is not, a couple in the middle of Nowheresville. This is a list of massive conventions full of people who are all fully vested in doing nothing but producing milk to keep milk flowing. All right, here we go. Still trying to find a non-white anywhere. So the bottom line is whites are the dominator, the ultimo dominator of the dairy industry. And this is why they complain about, dairy. This is not the only reason. The main reason is they can't digest it like white people can. But because white people can digest it so well, we are the dominators of it for ourselves. We want it for ourselves. We could care less if other people buy it. That's cool too. But we're producing it for our own consumption because it's for our people. You understand? And so anywhere white people live, milk flows. Remember, I told you to remember that word, flows. So I'm still scrolling, still trying to find a non-white. I haven't found one yet, and we went through a lot of pictures, but we're just going to keep going here for a minute just so I can really, rub this in and emphasize this. So here we go. Just example after example after example, and this could go on for hours. So I'm not going to labor you that. So what I will do is move on to beekeeper convention photographs, and let's try to find non-whites. And again, if you happen to, type in Chinese beekeepers and find some, good for you. But these conventions are thousands of white people who keep bees, and produce lots and lots and lots of honey. And so anywhere white people reside in massive quantities, honey will flow, just like milk will. Honey will be flowing. You see that crowd of thousands? It's all white people. There's no Africans there. There's no Jews there. Okay? There's no Jewish people at these. These are Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Scandinavian, Celtic, and kindred white people by the hundreds, by the thousands. And it will continue on that way all down through Google Images. And I didn't type in white beekeepers. I typed in beekeeper convention, And you could say to yourself, oh, well, only white people go to conventions. Okay, well, only white people hold conventions. And only white people could fill up massive buildings full of empty seats with their own kind, white people, to talk about and be concerned about and learn about and study about this one exact thing that happens to be honey. And of course, we do this about every other field there is as well. Everything from lighting to visual to technology to medical to chemical to botany. We do it all. And we also do conventions about all the things that we do. And so, yeah, you will see mostly white people at conventions, because only white people really hold conventions. And there's only white people have enough populace to even bother holding such large events. So, now we've tried finding non-whites in beekeeping for a while. We're going to go ahead and move on. The largest consumer of honey, Europe, see that? Is the largest global consumer of honey, being responsible for more than 20% of the total global consumption. China, the US, and Turkey are the other major global honey consumers. So, why do I say all this? Well, it's because 21 times in our Bible, it's really technically 20, but it's actually 21 if you consider Job verse 20 or chapter 20 verse 17. Milk and honey is the descriptor of the land that Israel is promised. And of course, you will read milk many times. It's 48 instances that milk appears in the Bible. And funny enough, honey appears 61. So I'll let you do the math on that. It's a fun number you come up with. So milk and honey is the land of milk and honey, flowing with milk and honey. It's not just a land of milk and honey. It's a land that'll be flowing with milk and honey. Why? Certain people could look at, say, Exodus chapter 3, verse 8 and say, oh, but first it was the Canaanites' land and the Hittites' land and the Amorites' land and the Perizzites' land and the Hivites' land and the Jebusites' land. Okay, but all of those were white folks as well. The problem is they had become mongrelized, so they weren't all white folks. There were white folks, and then there were mongrels, and then there were non-whites, all living in these areas. And what happened was it was given to us only to conquer, take over, and produce lots of milk and honey. And that's what white people do, among many other things we produce and make flow. But one thing we definitely do is make milk and honey flow wherever we live. So it wouldn't have mattered if the Lord had picked Alaska, what we know of today as the landmass Alaska. It wouldn't matter if he had picked Greenland or if he had picked Australia. Wherever the Lord would have picked, he knew that it would be a land flowing with milk and honey once we moved in there and settled and started building and started establishing. He knew that we would build dairy farms. He knew that we would build, giant honeycomb bee nests, if you will, or whatever they call it, hives, I should say, for bees. So it's just another fun little thing there for you to consider, because the land that flows with milk and honey is what we were promised. Now, we ruined that promise. You got to understand, we ruined the first promise. Our ancestors did, not you and I, but our ancestors before us ruined that promise. And so God's love is conditional. I have mentioned that in other videos before and explained it. I'll explain it again in another video if that floors you to hear such a thing, but it's true. Look in your Bible. God says if plenty of times, talking about his love and what he will or won't do for us if we obey, if we do as he says, if we love him. So his love is conditional, and our ancestors before us had ruined that situation. So we are not allowed to reside in the land that we call Israel now. We were driven out of that land, and America is the new Jerusalem. It is our new Israel, our new land of Israel. And it flows with milk and honey. We are one of the largest producers. Now, China is a very large producer, and so is the UK and a few other places. Of course, that's Europe, so that's our people too. Now, China, you got to understand, they have multiplied like jackrabbits over the last 1,000 years. So there are a ton of them, and so if you look at the ratio of how many people, how many white people are in America and Europe and make honey versus how many Chinese people there are in China total, and then who have the ratio of those folks who actually makes honey. You would see that white people are still a very dominant, we are the dominant kind when it comes to producing honey per person, per populace. So I don't want to get off too far on all those things. I just wanted to stick with this very narrowed in topic for you to comprehend that all the non-whites of the world, the land of flowing milk and honey, A, would make no sense, and B, would not be beneficial for them. They are not large dairy consumers because they, according to their own selves, are not tolerant of our white people milk, And so they complain that it is a white supremacist thing, that, oh, we drink milk in front of them to dog whistle to each other and laugh at them in their face and all these things. And so, and of course, they're trying to kind of dumb down the excuse of it with, rather than lactose intolerance, just the fact that milk is the color white. But really, it is about the lactose intolerance thing that they first brought up, that they first demanded we alter our milk to satisfy them, the 30 to 50 million, quote, 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 Americans, quote, 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 who aren't at all. They're not a part of our nation. A nation means a single race of people living together closely in a society, as a society. All right, you can't have multiple races living in a neighborhood and call it a nation. That's impossible. So America is no longer a nation. It once was, even though we still had some non-whites here. We were so predominant here that we were indeed a nation all the way until about 1989. So just wanted to show you these things and tickle your mind a little more. Now, this is a Jewish website. And I'll show you something at the top of this page that I want to show you. But before I do, I want you to see this little section 5 here. Mother Europe. Curiously, a 2013 study of the maternal origins of Ashkenazi Jews suggests that their ancestors were prehistoric European women from the northern Mediterranean and not the Middle East or the Caucasus, as other research has posited. You mean all of their other research. But see, you gotta understand, this is Haaretz. This is for them. This is for Jews. This is by Jews for Jews. And so this is them spreading around the real truth to each other. They know that their father Esau, and notice they use European woman. That's a giggle to all of them who are in the know, because they know they descend from Esau. Esau was indeed Adamic. He was a pure-blooded white man from Adam, who had descended from Adam. And he was born of Isaac. But the thing is, he went out and mated with 2 non-white women. So that means non-European women. Okay, so it was actually that their ancestor, who's a prehistoric European, quote, quote, is actually their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was Esau, not even great-great-great. It was actually literally just their grandfather. He fathered them. So, yeah, basically, it's not European women they were from. They were from non-white women from a, quote, European man. But yeah, at least they admit it among themselves here, which is why I wanted to show it to you. And now I'll scroll up to the top and let you see the other thing I wanted to show you, which I don't even remember what it is now. Oh, yeah, let me scroll on down here. And another thing is they try to tie themselves in with everyone, Europeans and, Palestinians and all these other types. They try to say, that they're basically mixed in with everyone, which is a total crock. Oh, I know I wanted to show you now, though, if I can find it. Let me scroll back up here. Let's see here. Let's scroll back up. I'm sorry I'm burning some time here, but I do want to show you, and you'll like it if I find the exact spot. Let's see here. They end up basically admitting, and please look this up for yourself. I'll show you the top again before we go if I remember. But I just wanted to show you, the whole top part is irrelevant, but I wanted to show you where this one part they actually, here's another thing. Here in number 4, notice that they say that they had to convert the local population of Ethiopia. That means Ethiopians were not ever those people, and that they had to be converted to that ideology. So maybe that's all I wanted to show you in this one. But there is another one I wanted to show you where they actually admit that they are not the tribe of Judah. And I thought I had it saved, and I actually thought it was on that page. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't keep that. But I will find it. I'll show it to you on another thing. And if you saw it in there without me knowing, good. But anyway, so here is just a quick little Google of that, what I was explaining to you and showing to you on the King James Online website. And then another thing that the Lord talks about with the land of milk and honey that flows, the land of flowing milk and honey. He also mentions wine often when he talks about the land of flowing milk and honey that is given to us. He will mention wine before that quite often in the same sentence and everything, in the same context. And wine consumption per capita, I just wanted to show you here that, white countries are, of course, the primary wine enjoyers. And then real quick, I was going to go to the very last page and show you who drinks the least wine of anyone in the world. And that would be all of these folks here. So let me go to 8 here, and we'll go and we'll check that out too. So here we go. These are all the least wine drinkers in the world. And I'm sure you'll see some popular dark cultures in here. And so that pretty much dumps on any of them needing a land that flows with that either. Since, let's review, they don't drink wine, they don't drink milk, they don't really consume much honey, though you will see that the worldatlas.com is shilling for blacks now and saying that Central Africa consumes the most honey, which is nonsense. Europe and America, which is where white people are, have consumed the most honey collectively for all of eternity. Same thing with dairy. And it's good for you to know this stuff because, like I said, in the Word of God, the land that we are promised is a land flowing with milk and honey and wine. And that is useless to the non-whites of the world, to all of them. Says them, by them, who originally complained that white people were enjoying a drink that they couldn't because all of them are lactose intolerant. All right? So the land of flowing milk and honey and wine is only for whites, and only whites are the ones who enjoy those things predominantly and always have predominantly. Yet another proof that only whites are Israel. Take care, everyone.